Okay, let's unpack this. Have you ever encountered a tool, maybe a piece of tech, that was so ambitious, so deeply thought out, it almost felt ahead of its time? Something that, well, maybe for a lot of people was just too much, you know?
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But for a certain group, a dedicated few, it became this indispensable legend.
Absolutely.
Today, we're diving deep into exactly that kind of device. We're talking about the Lovetone Doppelganger. It started as a phaser pedal, but it quickly became something much more.
Way more.
We're going to uncover its slightly quirky origins, its genuinely revolutionary design, and try to figure out why it commands these prices you usually see for, like, vintage guitars.
It is pretty wild.
It's a fascinating story, really, about this uncompromising vision.
And what's truly captivating here, I think, is how this relatively small UK company just pushed the boundaries, the very definition of what a guitar pedal could be.
Right.
They basically crafted this device that sort of blurs the line between just an effect and an actual expressive instrument.
Yeah.
So our mission for you today is to help you understand not just the incredible sounds the Doppelganger could make, but also the deep philosophy behind why they made it that way.
Okay.
You'll hopefully walk away really appreciating why it still inspires this like cult following and genuinely influences pedal design even decades later. It's about getting to the heart of its mythology.
Okay, so to really get a handle on the Doppelganger's impact, we probably need to rewind back to the mid-90s.
Yep.
Tell us about the people behind this Enigma Lovetone. Who were they? What was their sort of unique philosophy that led to these incredibly bold creations?
Right, so Lovetone was this UK-based boutique pedal company. It was founded by Dan Coggins and Vlad Naslis. And they weren't just, making pedals in the usual sense. They were really crafting these sonic statements. Their whole approach was fundamentally about challenging the norms of pedal design at the time. And their signature style was just unmistakable. They had these wildly imaginative, often quite funny names like the Big Cheese or the Meatball.
Right, I remember those.
The enclosures were often oversized, kind of unconventional looking. It immediately signaled, this is something different.
Yeah.
And the circuit designs inside, truly studio grade.
Yeah.
Deeply experimental. They weren't really aiming for the mass market with simple little stomp boxes.
No.
Their goals seemed to be achieving something like modular synthesizer level flexibility, real sonic depth, but somehow pack it into a format guitarists could use.
Okay.
It wasn't just another effect. It felt more like an invitation to explore sound.
And the Doppelganger specifically, it wasn't just another phaser in that lineup, right? It really stood out, even for them.
Exactly. Yeah, it was subtitled The Phase and Frequency Modulator, which tells you something straight away. This was Lovetone's kind of ultimate take on phasing, but it immediately set itself apart from pretty much everything else out there. I mean, think about the classic phasers everyone loves, like, say, an MXR Phase 90 or an EHX Small Stone. Great pedals.
Sure, classic.
But the Doppelganger just wasn't playing in that same league, really. It packed in features like dual LFOs, dynamic envelope following, even control voltage inputs, CV inputs. These really advanced features meant it offered this just unprecedented level of control of sonic sculpting. It made it one of the most flexible and honestly most sought-after phasers right from the moment it appeared.
Okay, Lovetone's ambitious vision is clear now. Let's peel back the layers of the Doppelganger itself. What specific innovations did they actually engineer into this big, oversized box that made it so revolutionary? Let's get into the circuit design.
Okay, so at its heart, fundamentally, it had this really warm, very organic, multi-stage analog phaser circuit, which even on its own delivered incredibly rich, high-quality phasing.
Right, the core sound was good.
Exactly. But what truly set it apart were the layers of really deep modulation options they built around that core. And this wasn't just adding a couple of extra knobs. It was like fundamentally expanding the whole sonic palette. One of its absolute standout features, I think, was its dual LFOs. Now, most phasers have just one LFO, a low-frequency oscillator.
Yeah, just one wave.
Right, like a single rhythmic wave sweeping the effect. The Doppelganger had two, and they were independently controllable.
Ah, okay.
So imagine having like two separate dimmer switches, each fading a light up and down at its own speed. But then their combined effect creates this much more intricate kind of evolving light pattern than just one switch ever could.
That's a great analogy. So it wasn't just a deeper sweep, but a more complex kind of movement.
Exactly. More complex, more unpredictable in a good way. And then there was the envelope following. How did that actually work for players?
Yeah, what did that mean?
The envelope following was just brilliant. It meant the phase sweep could dynamically respond to your playing, how you played. So it wasn't just a static, predetermined sweep cycling over and over.
Yeah.
It reacted to how hard or soft you hit the strings.
Right, like an auto wah, but for phase.
Precisely. Think auto wah, but instead of changing the filter frequency, it's manipulating the phase shift. Play harder, the effect might get more intense, more swooshy. Play softer, and it might become more subtle, maybe just a gentle shimmer. It gave it this really funky, incredibly touch-sensitive, expressive quality.
That sounds amazing.
It felt less like just stepping on a pedal and more like the pedal was part of your instrument, breathing with your dynamics.
Okay.
And then, really crucial for its experimental side, were the expression and CV inputs. Now, for the time, this was huge.
CV, control voltage, right, like synth Sue.
Exactly. Control voltage, CV. It's basically the universal language synthesizers use to talk to each other, letting them control parameters like pitch or modulation speed.
Right.
By putting CV inputs on the Doppelganger, Lovetone essentially made it bilingual. It could understand guitar signals and synth signals.
Ah, I see.
So not only could you plug in an expression pedal for real-time manual sweeps, like a wah pedal, but you could also integrate it seamlessly into the big creative world of modular synth setups. It genuinely bridged that gap between guitar effects and the synthesis world.
So with these dual LFOs, the envelope following, and even synth integration, it really sounds like the Doppelganger offered this massive sonic playground.
It really did.
But with all that complexity, was there maybe a risk of it just becoming too chaotic? Too much? How did players actually harness that? And what was its sort of core tonal fingerprint?
That's a really sharp question because, chaotic unpredictability could sound like a recipe for something unusable.
Right.
But I think the genius of the Doppelganger was in its inherent musicality. Yes, the tonal range was just incredibly vast. It offered this enormous palette. As a basic phaser, sure, you could dial in those rich, swooshy textures we all know and love, from really subtle movement right up to wild, resonant sweeps. But it really excelled when you pushed it further. With that envelope controlling gauge, it produced those really unique touch-sensitive phase shifts that, like you said, often blurred the line with auto filters. You could get these almost vocal-like kind of guttural responses. And with those dual LFOs working together or against each other, you could conjure up truly psychedelic, almost modular, synth-like patterns. Sounds that felt less like a standard guitar pedal and more like an evolving textural instrument in its own right.
So it wasn't just set and forget.
No way. Players didn't just set it, they performed with it. People would spend hours just exploring the interplay between the controls, discovering these amazing, sometimes accidental sonic textures. It wasn't about chaos just for chaos's sake, but more about controlled unpredictability that consistently yielded fresh, inspiring sounds.
That level of craftsmanship, complexity, and just unique design, it sounds incredibly labor-intensive to actually produce.
Oh, definitely.
So what happened to Lovetone and the Doppelganger? Why aren't these things still readily available?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It was never a mass market kind of operation. Production was very limited right from the beginning.
Okay.
Back in the 1990s, Lovetone built their pedals in these small, almost handcrafted boutique batches, often involving hand wiring components.
Right.
This meant that even when they were brand new, the originals were inherently rare. They weren't churning out thousands. We're talking maybe hundreds, perhaps even just dozens of some units.
Wow, really? That few?
Yeah, really quite small numbers. Then, in the early 2000s, Lovetone ceased production entirely. That moment, that decision, immediately catapulted the Doppelganger, and actually all the other Lovetone pedals too, into this realm of highly collectible gear. The original supply just dried up completely.
Yeah.
But the mystique, the demand, that only grew.
And that scarcity, combined with this reverence for the brand, it kicked off a whole other phenomenon, didn't it? This sort of explosion of a clone and revival culture around Lovetone pedals.
Absolutely. It was almost inevitable, really.
Yeah.
Because the originals became so incredibly hard to find and so expensive.
Yeah.
A really vibrant ecosystem just sprang up around them. You had boutique builders, sometimes even collaborating loosely with Dan Coggins himself.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like for instance, Thorpe FX, their deep Ogden chorus and the Pulsar tremolo were definitely Lovetone inspired, though they're not direct reissues of anything's specific,
right?
But builders started making pedals, trying to capture that sort of elusive Lovetone magic.
Right.
But maybe even more critically, the DIY communities just flourished.
Yeah.
PCB projects.
PCB printed circuit board.
Exactly. Detailed blueprints, sometimes full kits, that allowed hobbyists and enthusiasts to build their own replica of the Doppelganger's complex electronics basically from scratch.
So reverse engineering it.
Pretty much, yeah. Reverse engineering, it's magic. It became this sort of holy grail project for tinkerers and DIY builders who wanted to experience that unique sound without shelling out, thousands of dollars.
That's fascinating.
This whole spontaneous DIY culture around it really shows this powerful kind of consumer-driven preservation thing. When a beloved product disappears, passionate communities will often step in to recreate it, sometimes even evolve its legacy.
It's quite remarkable, isn't it? A company in the mid-90s choosing to go so strongly against the grain of simpler mass-market effects, really betting on the avant-garde.
Yeah, it is bold.
So with this kind of scarcity and this legendary status, what does one of these rare beasts actually fetch on the vintage market today? I mean, for a piece of gear, I imagine it's quite a sum.
You're not wrong. Originals now, they typically fetch anywhere from, say, $1,200 up to maybe $2,000, sometimes even more. Depends on the condition, the specific version, availability.
Wow.
I mean, put that in perspective. That's often more than some really high-quality modern amps or even some decent vintage guitars.
Yeah, that's serious money.
It's definitely an investment piece for many collectors. It reflects not just its rarity, but its enduring legendary status in the whole world of effects. It speaks to a kind of value that really goes beyond just its function.
For a pedal so unique, so complex, I mean, it really was an uncompromising tool. Who are the artists brave enough or maybe adventurous enough to embrace it and actually incorporate it into their sound? You'd need a certain kind of musician, right?
It certainly would, yeah. Two very prominent users that always come up are Ed O'Brien and Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead.
Ah, okay. Makes sense.
They famously used multiple Lovetone pedals, definitely including the Doppelganger, to help create those signature swirling, textured soundscapes that became so incredibly influential.
Right.
Their endorsement, even if it wasn't always explicit, spoke volumes to a whole generation of musicians looking for new sonic territory.
I do remember hearing about a Radiohead factor impacting pedal prices in general back then. Was that particularly true for Lovetone?
Oh, absolutely. It was a huge driver, no doubt about it. Rumors, confirmed sightings of Radiohead using Lovetones.
Yeah.
That definitely contributed significantly to prices just skyrocketing after the company shut down. When a band that influential champions a rare piece of gear, it creates this immediate surge in demand and desirability.
Right.
It turns a niche item into a coveted treasure almost overnight.
Sure.
Beyond Radiohead, Kevin Shields of My Bloody Valentine also famously experimented with Lovetone units, especially during the shoegaze revival years. That further cemented its experimental credentials with another kind of groundbreaking genre.
Okay.
But it wasn't just reserved for these huge names. It became a real go-to for a whole host of experimental guitarists, electronic artists too, precisely because of that near synth-level flexibility we talked about.
Right.
It just offered them a sonic sandbox that other pedals simply couldn't match at the time.
So what does all this mean then for the broader world of music gear, maybe even design? Beyond the famous users and the crazy prices, what was the lasting cultural impact of something like the Doppelganger?
It's a really important question, I think, and it speaks to more than just pedals. It definitely helps cement Lovetone's reputation as the boutique builder for the weird and adventurous. It created a genuine Lovetone cult among certain musicians. And the Doppelganger was undoubtedly one of their crown jewels. It embodied everything they stood for in terms of that uncompromising divine philosophy. But it also created this interesting division, which is actually fascinating and, frankly, a pretty common theme in design, isn't it?
How so?
Well, while it was this incredible modulation playground for some, offering just endless creative avenues, others dismissed it. They called it too much pedal.
Ah, right. Overcomplicated.
Exactly. They found it overly complicated, maybe unwieldy to use live, or it simply required too much effort, too much tweaking to dial in a sound quickly.
I can see that.
And that tension, between pushing boundaries with complexity versus the market's general desire for simplicity and ease of use. That's a universal design dilemma. It's not just guitar pedals. The Doppelganger's cult status really reminds us that a dedicated niche will almost always value that kind of uncompromising vision over mass appeal. And that DIY underground it fostered, that's a huge tangible impact. Entire communities sprang up specifically around reverse engineering and cloning these pedals,
right?
Just because the originals were so scarce and so coveted.
Yeah, you mentioned that.
The Doppelganger with its intricate complexity, was one of the absolute most desired projects within that whole DIY community. It genuinely inspired a generation of tinkerers, builders, engineers maybe, showing them what was possible with enough dedication and passion. It's a real testament to how enduring a truly innovative design can be.
Looking back at everything we've uncovered then, from its radical design to its cult following and the soaring prices, how would you sum up the Lovetone Doppelganger's place in the pantheon of iconic gear?
Well, the Lovetone Doppelganger, active really from the mid-90s into the early 2000s, it truly stands as one of the most ambitious phaser pedals ever conceived.
Yeah.
I mean, calling it just a phaser feels inadequate. It was part phaser, part envelope filter, part modular synth module almost, all meticulously crafted into this one, albeit large, unit. It fundamentally transcended traditional guitar pedal design.
Yeah.
And it rightfully earned its place as a true cult classic for experimental musicians, for anyone who sought something genuinely beyond the ordinary sounds available at the time. And even though it's long discontinued, extremely rare now, its influence really endures. It lives on through those meticulously crafted clones, through the dedicated DIY builds, and just through its undeniable status in pedal mythology. It showed what was truly possible when designers dared to dream beyond the standard formats, creating a device that inspired not just new sounds, but maybe even a new approach to sound design itself.
Yeah.
It taught us that pushing the envelope, even if it alienates some people, can absolutely cement a lasting legacy of innovation for others.
So you've heard how the Lovetone Doppelganger wasn't just an effect pedal, it was really a statement, a whole philosophy of sound design that remarkably continues to resonate today. It challenged players, it challenged them to embrace complexity, and it rewarded those who did with these unparalleled sonic possibilities. It kind of taught us that sometimes being too much for the mainstream is precisely what makes you legendary for that dedicated few.
And what's really fascinating here, I think, is that the very features, the complexity that made it too much pedal for some people, those are the exact same things that elevated it to legendary status for others.
Right. It's a paradox.
Exactly. It teaches us about the enduring value of niche, uncompromising design, and maybe how innovation can sometimes be so far ahead of its time that its true brilliance, its impact, is only really fully recognized years, maybe even decades later.
So as you reflect on this deep dive, maybe consider this provocative thought. How many other overcomplicated tools or technologies, or maybe even just ideas, do we dismiss today, simply because they demand a little more patience perhaps, or a steeper learning curve? Could some of these be the very cult classics of tomorrow, waiting for those willing to truly dive deep and explore their full, maybe unconventional potential? What boundaries are being pushed right now that maybe we're just not quite ready to appreciate yet? Keep your ears and maybe your mind open.